you ever have to replace a full septic system, depending on the size, location, time of year, it could be 20,000 bucks to replace a full system like that. Welcome to my classroom. I'm Chris Collette, the real estate professor. And today, I want to talk about kind of a gross subject. I actually want to talk about septic and sewer systems. So, little kids, watch your ears. We're going to say words like poop a lot, but that's okay because you need to know these things if you're going to be buying a house. So, in Massachusetts and in New Hampshire, we have septic systems. It's not unheard of to see both septic systems or sewers. Some towns will have almost all of one or all of the other. Really, every community is a little bit different. So you just should understand kind of the differences. And if you're thinking, I really want to buy a house, but there's no way I'm going to get a septic system, it has to be on public sewer. Tell your realtor that, because there are some cities and towns that just don't have sewer systems yet. So we know that we should just avoid those cities and towns. So let's actually go back way old school for a second. Let's go back in time. The first, pre-sewer, the first systems that we really had were things like tight tanks and cesspools. The idea that all of your waste, it left the house and it either went into a big tank in the ground or a big hole in the ground. These are systems where the stuff didn't really go anywhere. Somebody just has to come and pump it out. Those systems don't really get used anymore. The systems nowadays, modern systems, are sort of your tank plus leach field. But these old tight tanks and cesspools, they could occasionally still be around. You won't see them built now, and you won't see a lot of them. And a lot of times, if a house has one, maybe it functions fine, but maybe it won't pass a Title V inspection, which we'll talk about in a second. So imagine the modern system kind of looks like this. So you have a big tank in the ground. That tank is going to catch all the liquids and solids. The solids are going to stay there. The liquids are going to go through a distribution box out into a leach field with multiple fingers. So the fingers are sort of long tubes that allow the liquids to go into the ground. They don't immediately go, they go through some rocks, they get filtered a little bit, and they go slowly. So it's not like you got a big wet section of your yard. Frankly, a lot of times the best part of your yard is where this is because it's kind of works as a little bit of a natural fertilizer. But what we have now is a system where the liquids go one direction and just go into the ground safely, and the solids sit in a safe place where they'll be pumped out. Once a month, once a quarter, once every 6 months, once a year, once every 2 years, based on how often you need it pumped, how many people are in the home. Keep in mind, septic systems are rated by bedroom. It's not square footage, it's not the number of people in the house, it's how many bedrooms. They've done the math and they said, well, if there are 3 bedrooms, the tank should be this big, based on the amount of people you could put in those bedrooms. So if you're going to be buying a home in Massachusetts, the home's going to have to pass a Title V inspection if it has a septic system. Massachusetts is great about things like environmental protection. If your neighbor has a septic system, and let's say the tank has cracked, you could have some really nasty stuff getting into groundwater, getting into the earth, getting into water runoff that goes into the sewers, that maybe goes to the treatment plant, that turns into drinking water, right? You don't want to be dealing with that stuff into the rivers and lakes. So Massachusetts basically says, if anybody is going to buy or sell a home, the property, if it has a septic system, is going to need to be inspected. Now, if the property has been pumped every single year, then it needs to be inspected in the 3 years prior to sale. If it hasn't been pumped every year, then you only get a 2-year, in the previous 2 years, inspection period. And it has to pass. If it doesn't pass, you can still sell the property and you could still buy the property, but nobody's going to let you actually move into it. You won't have a certificate of occupancy. The idea is some people do this, they buy the property and then they replace the system themselves. And once it gets replaced, because maybe it was dangerous, once it gets replaced, then they can move in. That's sort of for special buyers, maybe who can afford it or don't need to move in right away, or they're buying it with a lot of money. If the septic system doesn't pass, however, you won't be able to get a traditional loan unless you either put money aside to fix it right away or use a renovation loan. Reach out if you have questions about renovation loans. We'll do an episode on those as well. Now, all of this is to say that the septic system is regulated, much less so in New Hampshire, keep that in mind, but that you'll get a system that's safe in most cases and will work and will function. Now keep in mind, there are usually some minor repairs that might have to be done. Oftentimes we'll see that the tank is fine and the leaching field is fine, but maybe the distribution box needs to be replaced. Might cost you $600 to $2,000. Most I usually see around $1,000 to get those replaced. And a lot of times the Title V inspection reveals that. They come to the house, they dig it up, and they say, this thing's gonna have to be replaced in order for it to pass. So then the seller will usually pay for it because they're gonna need to get it fixed to sell to anyone, and then you're good to go. This is all to say that you should really decide when wanting to buy a house, whether you're okay with a septic system, which in most cases is fine, or if you really just want a public sewer system. Public sewer system, super simple. You aren't having to deal with a big system in your yard, but you'll pay maybe a water bill and a sewer bill every month as part of living in that town. The system is regulated by the city or the town that you're in, the municipality. You don't have to worry about it in your own yard, and it usually is much simpler. It also tends to have a slightly better bump in home value as well. You might pay a little more for the houses that are already on the public sewer system because there's less maintenance. You ever have to replace a full septic system, depending on the size, location, time of year, it could be $20,000 to replace a full system like that. So it's something worth considering, something to think about. And if you're thinking about buying a home in Mass, New Hampshire, investing in Mass or New Hampshire, just replacing septic systems in Mass or New Hampshire, reach out to me and my team. We'd love to help and at least answer questions for you. I'm Chris Collette, the real estate professor, and I'll see you guys next week.